A new frontier for Star Wars, a new galaxy. That's what Peridea is likely meant to represent. After a long time of stories being told in the galaxy far, far away, it looks like we're now fully entering into a brand new galaxy even further away. Our introduction to this galaxy is Peridea, a planet that reveals to us a completely lore-changing truth, which is that the Night Sisters and the Dathomirians originated from this strange Peridea. Our suspicions now confirmed, the Night Sisters wield their strange magic as a result of the Force manifesting differently in this new galaxy. However, all is not well and wondrous as we would like it to be. There is lurking a great threat behind the shadows, one which is scarcely mentioned by anyone besides Baylan's skull. It is a great threat that Shin believes the Night Sisters and Thrawn are actively running away from, and one that Baylan is convinced is calling out to him. This power could be anything, and yet, a popular theory has quickly surfaced as to what this might be, or who it might be. Old fables have slithered their way out from the dark crevices of legends, and now we must ask ourselves, are we prepared to believe this great power could be the bringer of chaos, Abeloth, the mother? Trapped far away in a distant galaxy, out of sight and out of mind, this theory suggests that the ones of Mortis have imprisoned Abeloth long ago on Peridea, which is how the original Dathomirians made it to the galaxy in the first place. Well, my friends, today we weigh this theory on our scales and talk about the likelihood and evidence to support this claim. So let's begin the video. For those unaware or just need a refresher, let's talk about Abeloth's origins and her story in legends. The creature or entity Abeloth was one of the most powerful beings to exist in the galaxy. She was a woman of indiscriminate height with long tentacles for fingers and a wide mouth full of sharp teeth, along with two void black eyes. The power she carried within the Force was so terrifying and horrendous that it took the combined might of the Ones in order to trap her away so that she would not spread her corruption to the rest of the galaxy. But this was not who she once was. Many millennia ago, in a time not recorded when the Ones were still on their original jungle homeworld prior to Mortis, there existed a human woman who was fully mortal and in the service of the Ones. We know not her name, but she was simply a servant in their household, yet she grew to love the family of the Ones and became greatly endeared to them. The father ended up marrying her, and the son and daughter loved and even respected her. She would end up becoming the mother. For a time, the mother was everything the Ones needed. She kept the son and daughter from their constant warring, and would direct the son's destructive power towards the carving out of caverns, creating valleys on the planet. Because of this, it was said that she was the only one that truly understood the son, and he obeyed her due to that understanding and compassionate love that they had for one another. But nothing lasts forever, and the cold, harsh reality began to set in for the mother. She was mortal, and the Ones were not. She was growing old and frail and would soon die, leaving her beloved family behind to live on in their immortal state and potentially forget about her existence entirely. In fact, due to her old age, she was already beginning to lose her grip on the son and daughter, who both began to ignore her instruction and went back to fighting. Refusing to accept this fate, the desperate mother went and bathed in the pool of knowledge as the daughter once had to gain her abilities, and drank from the font of power as the son once had. Both of these were nexuses of Force energy, light and dark respectively. Yet, the mother was lacking something crucial. She did not have the physiology of the Ones who each were celestial adjacent in nature and had the blood of celestials in them, the original wielders of the Force. The two nexuses of power therefore drove her insane, as she was never meant to touch such power. She was mutated into a horrific monster with powers beyond even what the Ones of Mortis possessed. Abeloth now was born, and she would return to the household of the Ones and forcefully dominate the son and daughter with sheer might, making them cease their fighting and kneel before her in servitude, just as she once served them. Disgusted by this, the father took his children and abandoned the planet, leaving Abeloth all alone as she always feared. In her despair, the entire jungle planet became twisted and corrupted as a vile place was born, a place of horror, one that was completely under her dominion and sadness. Eventually, the Ones had to trap her and the planet in the center of the galaxy within a place that they called the Maw. With this backstory of Abeloth though, even now and then, over the course of many of hundreds of years, Abeloth would take advantage of the tides turning in the Force, using it to break free of the Maw. When Abeloth did, the son and the daughter had to battle and return her back to where she was banished. In the many Jedi Academy novels, the EU story follows Luke and his Jedi Order as they encounter the now re-emerged Abeloth, the creature who broke out of the Maw unchallenged due to the deaths of the Ones, and the battle with her to stop her plans of domination and corruption of the entire galaxy began. It required Luke reaching levels thought to be unreachable by mortals in the Force in order to defeat her. And even with that, Abeloth was never truly dead, but only incapacitated for many more hundreds of thousands of years. Abeloth's existence was truly horrific, and the power she wielded placed her firmly within the realms of the upper echelons of any Force entity, only rivaled in power and canon by the Force priestesses. But now, how could this translate into Star Wars canon as a whole? If this theory is true, then all that would need to change is the Ones banished Abeloth to a different galaxy, rather than simply trapping her in the Maw. This would actually make a little more sense, and could actually be safer. It would also explain why Abeloth hasn't returned until this point in time. But why do we think that it is Abeloth on Peridea calling to Baylan? All we have to go off of right now is the interaction between Baylan and Shin concerning what and why they're on Peridea in the first place. The clearly nervous Shin deems it a wasteland and says that they need to leave with everyone else, while her master, in the adamant Baylan, is convinced that their new beginning lies on this new world. The way he speaks implies a new order. But perhaps it is much more than this. Perhaps Baylan speaks of new beginnings and power beyond anything you've ever dreamed. Perhaps he intends to awaken Abeloth so that she can take over and remake the galaxy to what he believes is right, as her faithful follower. Perhaps even ascending Baylan and Shin to godhood in the process. We also hear that Baylan says Peridea is a land of dreams and nightmares. This is a frightening statement to make because it all but confirms the sneaking suspicion that it is indeed Abeloth. In Legends, the beloved Queen of the Stars would reach out to the Force sensitives and drive them mad through dreams. Those that she didn't drive insane, she would either dominate their minds or would call them to her so that they could free her. It's awfully suspicious that Baylan appears to be the only one who isn't disturbed by the power of Peridea. Even the Night Sisters fear it. He's drawn to this power, whereas Shin even is repelled. Shin is loyal to her master and clearly trusts him with her life. However, this recent episode is one of the first times that we see her come into conflict with him. She is questioning him harder now as she begins to grow more and more uncertain about this mission. Shin says that it's good Peridea was long forgotten and that they should flee like the Night Sisters are. Shin, showing her cunning perception, can clearly see that the Night Sisters and Thrawn are trying very hard to get off of Peridea for an unknown reason. And the longer that they stay, the more wary Shin is clearly growing of even Baylan. Baylan tries to calm her fears by reassuring her that the two of them are the ones on the bold track to power. In his words, the Night Sisters flee a power greater than their own. This implies that this power is not a Force nexus, but a malevolent living creature. This brings up something else interesting about the entire ordeal: the Night Sisters and their knowledge of Abeloth. In the Dathomirian folklore, the witches worship the Fang God and the Wing Goddess, both of these in direct reference to the animal forms of the son and daughter of Mortis. This is confirmed in Mother Talzin's chapter Wild Power in the Book of the Sith, where there are pictures to reference the Fanged God and Winged Goddess. Clearly the Night Sisters have knowledge of the Ones and even worship them. Strangely though, there is no mention of the father in the Dathomirian folklore, perhaps implying that the Night Sisters may not know nearly as much about the Ones as they think they do. But let's say that perhaps the father didn't show up to Peridea at any point in time, but the son and daughter did in order to keep Abeloth trapped there. It's likely that the ancient Night Sisters saw them beat back the horrific creature and desired to travel far away from the planet. Perhaps the son and daughter helped them, thus furthering their legend, and continued to worship them when they reached the worlds of Arcana and Dathomir in the known universe. Simply put, whether the ancestral Night Sisters ever actually saw Abeloth or not, they should have a working knowledge of this being by virtue of their familiarity with the Mortis gods. The next thing that comes to mind about this whole debacle is Anakin Skywalker though. As the new overseer of the universe and the effective replacement for the father, does Anakin have a knowledge of Abeloth? And if so, what is he doing about it? If everything we've talked about to this point hasn't been purely speculation, then this is where it begins. Anakin would undoubtedly know of Abeloth. Perhaps this was even the reason that the Force gave him another chance in the afterlife. But if he's holding her back alone, then why should we fear Abeloth's return if the Chosen One is watching? The only thing we can figure is that there is something keeping Anakin from fully being able to do something about Abeloth, likely due to the realm separation, or perhaps he can only indirectly offer his help through guidance rather than direct action. We still aren't sure of the kinds of celestial laws that Anakin's new form must abide by, or if there are any laws at all. But I think the biggest question that we should be asking is Anakin strong enough to hold back Abeloth? Many would answer yes, because he has reached the apex of his power at last. But the problem is that we don't know the full scope of Anakin's true new power in the Force. He definitely eclipses the power of the Father, but so did Abeloth. In fact, it was speculated that Abeloth was more powerful than all three of the Mortis gods. Our guess, though, is that Anakin's power is not the problem, but rather his direct involvement. As the keeper of the world between worlds, he may not be able to fully intervene in the physical universe's problems. But now, stepping out of universe for a moment, I want to touch on some of the thoughts about how Lucasfilm would move forward with this wisely. Thrawn is the greatest foreseeable threat, and the main antagonist of the foreseeable future. What I am concerned about is if they bring in Abeloth is the proper scaling of the story. Abeloth is far too big of a creature to have worked out on a streaming platform. She will need a trilogy of her own, if not her own saga where she is the main threat. With the main problem right now being the placing of Luke Skywalker and his involvement in the story, as he was the one that directly helped destroy, or rather imprison, Abeloth in the first place. The only way I could see them moving forward with this is if they foreshadow Abeloth now and have her actual emergence happen within episodes 10 through 12, likely with a new Jedi Order in order to combat her. Again though, due to the very story of Abeloth being massive. What's clear though, is that Abeloth would contain the power that Baylan speaks of, and the power to terrify even the race of Night Sisters. It is likely this otherworldly entity that is trapped in this new galaxy that screams out to Baylan just as Abeloth did in Legends, begging to be freed and offering endless power potentially. I believe that to some extent, Abeloth is the creature that is calling to Baylan, and even if she is not fully revealed in Ahsoka, I do believe that this brand new dark galaxy, one riddled with life and death, has something to do with this abominable creature. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this theory? And do you believe that Abeloth could actually be calling to Baylan? As always, my friends and acolytes, thank you so much for visiting the channel today, and may the Force be with you.